So this last session is going to be more about, it's kind of a little bit more about Bitcoin, the technology, the platform, and we'll have a little bit, obviously, question and answer at the end. And we might even, if we have time, have our friend who can show you a little bit of the stuff that's going on in Bitcoin SV ecosystem. But because the gentleman over there asked about the subsidy, right, and mining and why, what's going to happen when the subsidy runs out, I think that's really good segue, because I wanted to ask, what is the biggest misconception about mining fees? It sounds like with your original design of Bitcoin, fees are supposed to pay miners after. And in that sense, then, every other cryptocurrency, every other one that I can think of, right, either whether it be EOS or Tezos or Ethereum or whatever, Monero, all of these cryptocurrencies build in incentive systems for people to run the nodes, to mine or to stake or to validate. They're always trying to create the platform inherent, or the native platform incentive to do it. You seem to be the only one that says, like, the platform subsidy, the incentive for you to run something is going to go to zero, and if people don't use it, then the platform shouldn't be used.
So Google do 63,000 searches on average a second. That exceeds Visa and their peak transaction rate. Facebook do a little bit less. With what we're doing with what we call Terranode, and I know I have terrible names for things in marketing-wise.
Terra for terabyte, I guess.
Yeah, terabyte. In the next sort of 2 years, we're hoping to actually get up to over 1 million transactions a second. And my end goal for my team is to get to 1 billion transactions a second. We have the technology already there. The limits on any testing I've done in the past have been 340 transactions a second, but not in a way that I'd like to put out in the real world. But we will basically, with better, more stable than my code, run that out, and within the next 4 years we'll hit multiple millions of transactions a second. That will enable real privacy, not just Bitcoin. But if Google doesn't sell ads, imagine Google is selling 1/1000th of a cent per search. Imagine Facebook is selling not your information to the NSA, but selling access at 1/1000th of a cent per click. Imagine each of those likes have a value. Is that a different world? Imagine now that they can actually protect your privacy without going, we need to sell it to ad companies, to governments, to whoever wants to buy it. That's what scale does. That's why I'm doing this. That's what privacy is about. Right now, I do a search on Google, and my first page is ads of crap that I don't want. That simple. And every time I do it, they sell my information. And we're talking, people say, oh, but what about poor people? I'm not talking anything that will ever impact anyone who's poor. I'm talking cents a day. Imagine, instead of advertising, you can have cents a day. And imagine you're in Africa, and we've already got some platforms started, like Uptime SV, where people can crowdsource services. And instead of having a central Silicon Valley company basically earning a lot of money to ping your servers, some guy in Africa can log in and earn a few cents at a time, maybe earning $20 to $50 a week, which everyone will go, that's terrible. They're not earning much. But if you're earning $3 a day, that's a lot just for clicking a web page. These people can earn and have dignity because they earn. Dignity's not handouts. Dignity's doing something valuable. And even if it's earning a few cents at a time, that's valuable. And telling people, like Samson Mao did, that you're too poor to use Bitcoin, My answer to him is screw you.
So I mean, you're touching upon the whole microtransactions application of Bitcoin.
Correct.
Because I think a lot of people who are either in crypto because it's a speculative asset, I can get myself rich really fast, or it's a blockchain ICO, I can raise money really fast. If those aren't the real uses of Bitcoin, it's really microtransactions. And
So right now, we have a speculative industry. If we have EDI on the blockchain and enable businesses to be faster, more nimble, and have lower fees, enable someone who spends over $1 trillion a year on EDI transactions, such as Walmart, to decimate their costs. That changes the economy. If we can now actually have someone like Google and Facebook do what they promised us by having privacy, not selling us for ads, that changes everything. And here's the thing. If we're charging under 1,000th of a cent for a web page securely, one, no one's going to hack your server to steal 3 cents on your wallet. Guarantee it. Won't happen. Two, that industry alone at that level would be a $10 trillion industry. That's not Bitcoin mining now. That is not total value. That is revenue. Imagine what $10 trillion a year is for micropayments. And I'd like to see it cheaper. That's what I'm working for. So not swapping shitcoins, not any of this stuff on speculation, plumbing that enables a different version of the internet that is secure, that is safe. Imagine every time you log into a server, it's recorded. Why? Because the first thing hackers do is they delete logs. The first thing someone does to get access to your server is remove the evidence. If you can stop them removing evidence because it's stored on the Bitcoin blockchain, because every time someone has an admin login, it's alerted, the whole hacker culture dies.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, you've basically this whole view of how everything on the internet can change. I mean, you're really basically saying, and I think this is all the MetaNet idea, how attributing value to the internet or to Bitcoin allows you to really radically change the way everybody interacts with the internet today. And you also address the fact that, miners in the future will be sufficiently paid for economically. It will be profitable, which is a very big worry in a lot of the platforms.
Not because they're home users, because they're professional competing industries. And Bitcoin's not designed to make a whole bunch of home users. You can still do home user stuff because Bitcoin is peer-to-peer. Not the way that people are using it now. One of the first things people stripped out of my version of Bitcoin was IP to IP. That meant person to person, peer to peer. Bitcoin scales because it's peer-to-peer. Not because I send everything to the nodes, but because I actually communicate with the people directly.
Yeah, and you've talked about that in other talks. It gets a little technical, but yes. So basically, with peer-to-peer, just like a business transaction, a contract.
Correct. Not like people try and tell you as peer-to-peer, which is really peer to node to node to node to node to peer.
So let's finish off with a couple of like Bitcoin trivia that are maybe interesting. So we spoke today, and I realized one thing about the trivia which I didn't know about, which I thought was very interesting, was the basis of the 21 million, right? 21 million Bitcoins. Why 21 million? And there's a lot of theories that people have about why 21 million. Why not? Maybe it's a half of 42, and 42's the answer to the universe, obviously. But why 21 million?
21 million's not the answer. So first of all, because of IEEE 75.4, there are limits on how you can accurately transmit integers without loss and error. Bitcoin needs to not have errors in what you're putting in the system. So that effectively leads us to a limit of about 60 million Bitcoin, or 6 quadrillion tokens. Now, there's not a massive difference, there's not a market difference between 2.1 as we have and 6. So why not 6? Well, effectively, it's a Taylor series and halving to get rid of the subsidy, and it's a nice simple one. As I said, 50, 25, 12 and a half, 6 and a quarter, 3 and an eighth, etc. If you add all of those numbers up, they come to 100. So all the block rewards add to 100. So it's really simple for people. I never really thought I'd need to explain this. I thought it was obvious. I generally get that problem.
Not very obvious.
No, so it's a percentage. And people can look at this and go, the mining subsidy remaining is, we need to act. That's it.
So basically now that we're in the 12.5 epoch, you can easily say
to halve.
It's about to have next year, but we're at 12 and a half, so that means there's 12.5% Bitcoin left unmined.
At the beginning of that period. So when we enter the next bit, we know that starting that period is 6 and a quarter left. So we have just over 93% of the Bitcoin mined. The impact of all the remaining things over that entire next century from subsidy will be less than 7%.
Okay. So in looking back then, really I only have 2 questions, right? And they're kind of like very high level questions. So what is the one thing which you underestimated about the world in general, the ecosystem, how it developed? When you launched, when you released the white paper in November 2008, right? Or was it sometime
bits and pieces before that? A few people got it earlier.
So what is the biggest thing that you did not expect, which developed?
I really didn't think people would embrace it from the dark side. I didn't think the first application people would invest in on Bitcoin would be a heroin store. I didn't think people would go, hey, we've got this blockchain that records everything. And I thought Lawrence Lessig, he'd been discredited and whatever else. I didn't think Coder's Law would ever rear its ugly head ever again. And everyone's ignored Timothy Wu and others who've basically gone through all the flaws in this and pulled it apart and forgotten them and dug up the corpse of this horrible idea, which is really an older idea. The philosophes and the technocrats in 18th and 19th century France had this same idea, which is we're smarter than everyone else, the people are dumb, we should set the rules. And this happens again and again. And we're seeing it in Silicon Valley right now. That's why I don't like Silicon Valley so much. Because these people sit there going, we've made lots of money, we're clearly smart, you're just dumb average people, you should do what we say, because stuff.
But wouldn't you say that was kind of like...
It has others like Ian Grigg, and it had others who were a bit wacky, but it wasn't just that. And I didn't only release it there. I also released it on the peer-to-peer forums, and I also released it in all these other places. It's just, unfortunately, it got a lot of traction on the wrong places. And I really respected people like Hell, but people have misapplied his ideas. I mean, people sit there telling me Hal Finney would never have patented anything. Hal Finney has patents. I'm sorry. I don't care if you don't like that. He started patenting things in the 80s, before I was working in this industry. So get over it.
I think one thing that we didn't cover was like you did have a pass in network security, and you have a list of qualifications in the SANS Institute